But one idea that popped into my head when you were talking about blocks, and then sit there, I was thinking, wouldn't it be funny if you wrote your block a letter and see what happens with that? Like, dear block, why are you doing this to me?
Why can't you just be easy to deal with?
Yeah. Why do you hurt me like this?
Yeah. Ours is a strange and unique relationship.
Oh, wow.
Hello and welcome to The Human Now, where we're discussing ideas around what it means to be in this state of time. My name is Akash, and today I'm joined by Akshi, Bhav, and Brad. Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Before we get into just introducing who you guys are, I just want to take this time to just thank everyone who's tuned in. If you're watching or if you're listening, thank you very much for being on this journey with us. For everyone who's given us feedback since we've been back, thank you very much. It's really, really appreciated, and we're taking everything that everyone's telling us into consideration, and we're implementing everything into our processes to make the experience better, so that it's not just 4 people sitting here and talking, but we're also including everyone who's sitting there and listening and watching as well. Cool. Welcome, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, man.
So I thought it'd be cool just to, if you guys could introduce yourselves, seeing that the topic of discussion today is around creativity, and seeing as I see you guys as creatives in my life who inspire me. When I think about creative people, I think about you guys.
Cool.
And so if you guys could talk about, kind of like a quick rundown of your background, what you're into, and then also what we do with everyone who, for new people who come to the podcast, we ask a question, which is, do you fold or scrunch? So you just give us your intro and then finish with the fold or scrunch.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to start at the other end of the?
Yeah, I can start. So I started in dance, which is a Bollywood dance school, and it started off as just teaching kids dance, but it turned into like massive stage productions basically. So I'm the head choreographer as well. So I guess my creativity comes out in my choreography and how we do our productions. Yeah, and I think I'm a folder.
Wow, okay.
I don't know what that means, but yeah.
Oh my god. I'm really kidding. I guess since we're starting that direction.
Yeah.
Cool. So my name's Bhav, or Bhavesh, and it's one of those things where it comes to describing who I am, what I do. Even my family don't know what I do exactly, because I've done quite a few things and people know me for different things. Speaking with Brad earlier, he knows me as a Domus Books guy. Thanks, Brad.
That's Akash. That's Akash.
But just to summarize my background, it's in product design, and not that I've always been practicing as a product designer. I've done a bunch of creative community events and random creative events with that, doing all sorts, and some stuff with Akash, like a mini golf course out of trash, and currently do a lot of placemaking and projects in the community space with communities, and looking to work with them on delivering on ideas or things that aim to change the way Auckland is, really.
Nice.
So hopefully it summarizes well. Anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
That's me.
I think so.
Cool.
And are you a fold or scrunch?
Oh, fold or scrunch. Depends what mood I'm in.
Sweet. Okay.
I'm Brad. My background's in architecture, and I've worked in the industry for a few years now, and also starting now to finish up a thesis in a Master of Architecture and Urban Design. So I guess the kind of creative industry that I'm in is architecture and urban spaces, and but also, I was saying before, I'm keen to be creatively diverse, which is why I'm here. I want to get involved in lots of different kind of creative aspects of our industry, but also other industries that that are strongly creative.
Cool.
I scrunch, man. Like, who's got time to fold?
Scrunch. Wow.
Get in, get out.
Messy job, man.
Do what you got to do. Are you gonna? Do you answer that question as well?
Yeah, I'll answer that as well. So, yeah, like Brad, my background is in architecture and urban design. That's what I'm interested in. But when I think of creativity, I think of design as like the language, and then say dance, product design, or architecture as the expression of this. So I like to tap into everything. Like I've been lucky enough to have been exposed to like dance, and to have met like Bhav and do all these things, and so I'm kind of all about bringing all these things together, remixing them up, and creating something new from them all. That's kind of like my
Cool.
what I'm interested in and what I want to explore further.
Cool.
Cool. So
wait. Fold or scrunch?
fold, man. There's only one way to do it.
Great. So actually, just for how do you and Bhav know each other? How did you guys meet?
From the
There's a Hindu youth forum.
That's
Cool.
Is that where
And
you
then you
did
as
you
well.
speak there as well? Actually,
I
Did
did.
you-
Yeah, I did.
So there's like a forum for Indian youth.
Yeah.
And then Bhav spoke there, and I was like, oh, Bhav seems like a cool dude.
Yeah, cool.
You know, and
Mhm.
I'm quite interested in the stuff he does. So then I just introduced myself to him, and then got involved with his projects. And yeah, like he said, he did the pop-up mini golf.
Yeah.
So just helped him out on that.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. I didn't
No,
mean to
man.
interrupt you.
It's
Just curious, you know.
For those who want to know, Brad and I study together,
Yeah.
and that's how I know
Yeah.
him.
So you already knew my background, you know. Hear me complaining all the time.
Cool. So let's dive into the discussion. And so today's discussion's around creativity, the power of imagination, and then also how we use our creativity to help us in our lives, and then also how we overcome our creative blocks, and again how we apply or transform that into our life. So if we start with what it means to be a creative to you guys, I think we could start there, and feel free as well to chuck in your own ideas and any thoughts that you guys have as well.
Yeah, sure. Shall I kick us off? Shall I give us a
Yeah,
go?
go
It's
for it.
it's a hard one to answer, right?
Mm.
Because I mean, there are so many, I think, different kind of facets to being a creative, and I feel like personally, the creative that I was maybe like 5 years ago is very different to the creative that I consider myself now. So I think what it means to me to be a creative is to constantly be improving your methodology as a creative, and to constantly be creating as well, as much as you can, I think.
Right.
Maybe that's a super simple answer, but
Mhm.
Yep.
I just think it's important just to keep, keep moving forward, even if you're finding it difficult.
Yep.
That's creativity, you know.
Yeah, same answer as him.
Mm.
Okay, I'll add to that though, because I do relate to all of those points. And for me, part of creativity is just that challenge to see what's possible. And being a designer, it's kind of fulfilling that whole process where it becomes tangible. Much like in architecture, you'll start with your sketches or whatever, and then it'll build through into something that you can physically see in front of you. And through creativity, I get a lot of satisfaction going through that process. And so that's one part of creativity, is that challenge. And then because you kind of shared some of the base questions with me, is like, one thing that always comes to mind is the 8 creative intelligences. Are you guys familiar with that? Or 8 intelligences? And
Do you want to expand on that?
I wrote them down because I've got a leaky brain. I remember everything. But it comes from Howard Gardner, and there's social or interpersonal, so chatting with others, etc. in groups. It's musical, spatial. There's like bodily or kinesthetic, so it'll be dance. There's logical - mathematical, intrapersonal, so kind of connecting with yourself. There's naturalistic, so of nature. Then there's verbal - linguistic, like writing and speaking.
Yeah.
And so there's different kinds of creativity. And just to digress slightly, because I've run a bunch of creative community events, and it's interesting when you put on an event and you have creativity in the tagline of it. Our tagline was like Creative Conversations Forum or Creative Conversations Club. The word creativity can be excluding, which is an unfortunate thing, but that's because not everyone acknowledges or is able to acknowledge that they are creative.
Yes.
Do you think that intimidates people as well?
Yeah, it does, really does.
Yeah.
You know, associations with creativity is that
Yeah.
certain kind of person, they do certain things. And yeah, there's that kind of in the mix. So me as a creative, I try to advocate for my fellow creatives and also advocate for letting people know that they are also creative as well. They perhaps just haven't acknowledged it so well.
100%.
And there's more than just like people who paint and make things and dance and all that. Yeah, hopefully that answers some of that. But building on what I was just adding to what Brad was getting at.
Just like the foundation.
Cool.
It's really interesting. I think being a creative, like I think what Bob was saying, how creativity can exclude people because you don't know you're a creative. But I didn't think I was a creative because I was just doing something that I enjoyed. And I didn't even think that I was like very good at it. I just thought I was just doing something I enjoyed. I was like, okay, I'm just choreographing and teaching dancers. And so I've been teaching and choreograph for like 20 years. And probably only recently I would call myself a creative, which is really weird, right? Because I've been doing it for ages. But it took a long time for me to see that I can create something, I guess almost like better. I guess that's the only way you can put it. That I do have a skill in it, that I could, because I could do it better, or I could see that I was like, oh, I wouldn't really do that there because I don't see that going there. I see it going here. And it's only when, I think in terms of dance, because in New Zealand, there's no kind of, in Bollywood dance, there's no one to really aspire to or nothing to really aspire to here, or no one to guide us or teach us the way. So like if you go overseas, if you go to America and stuff, there's like almost like a board which just like governs Bollywood dance there, you know, and they hold big competitions and things like that. So it's a very like, you know, this is, if you're good, you reach here.
And so there's none of that here. There's no
one who really knows Bollywood dance here in the correct way. So people can only do what they know, right? So that people can only judge what they know. So if you don't know Bollywood dance, you can look at the sync and you can look at the choreo, or you can look at, but if you don't know Bollywood and how it started and what it what's the base of it, you don't even know what Bollywood dance is. So you need that knowledge as well. So sometimes you get all these mixtures of people kind of judging competitions or holding events, but they may not have a full rounded knowledge of dance or Bollywood dance. They're made about dance, but not Bollywood dance. I'm very passionate about Bollywood dance. So it's only when Bollywood dancers, like famous Bollywood dancers, came from overseas and started watching our dances and giving us comments. That's when I was like, oh my God, I'm doing something that other people can't. So it took a really, really long time because there was like no one to tell us here that, no, actually you are good at what you do, because there was no one here to recognize it, to be able to say, actually you are good at what you do compared to others, because, you know, you can see music in a different way. You know, like the guy who came, he was judging, he's like, you can make music be seen through dance. And it's like when you say it in Hindi, it makes more sense. But like to be able to do that is a skill. And I would have never thought I had that skill until someone from overseas who was like, wow, no one came and said that. And I was like, oh my God, I can do this, because they weren't saying it to everyone. They weren't saying it to everyone, all the other groups. They said it to us. So then I was like, okay, maybe I am a creative. So actually, which is really weird, because I would have never called myself that for, you know, only very recently, maybe in the last 5-6 years of 20 years of dancing and teaching. I wouldn't have thought myself to be a creative. So I think creativity is just like, I think hugely about imagination. I think you can't put a structure to it. I know you said methodology, but I'm not sure about that, because I feel like it's not like, so when I go to work, like my normal work, you're like, I got these tasks to do. You do these tasks, right? It's not with creativity. You can't go in and be like, okay, I'm going to choreograph this dance. You can go and choreograph. You can just do that. You can do that. So you can be like, yep, and you put some moves together, or you can do it really, really, really well. And I feel like you can't put like a set time on it. You can't do, it's going to be like this, or it's got to be like this. It's very like as it comes and it just flows. It's something that flows.
Yeah.
So I think, it's almost like, it's got a lot to do with imagination, but also how you turn the imagination and bring it to life. And that process in between, I think, is like the creative process. Because I think a lot of people can imagine, but not everyone can make it come to life exactly how they pictured it inside their head.
Yeah.
Do you want to expand on what you meant by the methodology?
Actually, you read my mind because I
Yeah.
think
Because I'm like, okay, well, I think
because you, I think
Sam, he wants to say something. I think it's like, so I think that, and when I say methodology, I think that's very specific to
Yes.
kind of an individual process.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
for me, methodology is specific to the way that I would practice creativity.
Yeah.
And so for me, I'm a list kind of person, you know, and I've got like this big kind of task ahead of me, which is, and you know, so trying to write and design a thesis at the moment as well is kind of, you know, it's timely to be talking about this, I think. But you know, there's this big kind of ominous almost task ahead where it's like, you know, research and design and understand and explain. And so the way that I try and approach that is to kind of break it off into bits and, you know, compile a list, which is like, research this thing and think about this thing. And so that's my methodology,
Right.
where I would be, it's not necessarily like research for 25 minutes on how so-and-so, you know, it's like I would break it down into kind of tasks that are open-ended, but give a bit of articulation to what it is that I need to do.
I think you're talking about what Akshi just said in terms of the transforming the idea or the thing in the head
and the imagination
and realizing what that is.
Yep.
I think you guys are saying the same.
I don't know. It's like, I think maybe I'm thinking about the actual, like when you're in the zone and you're in the moment,
Right.
and you're doing that creative process. So I feel like there's a planning to get to that. So for example, if I'm like, okay, I need to choreograph this dance, I got to teach it. So before, when I had lots of time, I just like, I feel like going to dance, I'll go and I just go in the studio and dance. I can't do that now because I've got a job, I've got 2 kids and this, and I have to plan the time. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to choreograph at this time, then I've got my class at this time, I'm going to teach it. But it doesn't, for me, that doesn't work as well. Like I like it when my mind is like just free and it's not, I don't have a time limit to it. So I feel like you can plan up to that point.
Right.
So you're like, okay, you know that you're, okay, this performance day is this time. I need to choreograph, I need to teach it. So you plan. I feel like those are not the creative parts to it. It's almost like leading up to the moment where that creative part happens.
For sure. Yeah.
So I think that's what I mean. I feel like in that moment, there's no methodology, but leading up to it and planning, I feel like that's more, for me, I would call that planning.
Yeah.
Like, okay, this time I'm going to do this and this time, and it doesn't always happen. Like sometimes it's like, it's not happening. Okay, I'm just going to chuck something together. And sometimes it's like you're so in the flow and like it just takes minutes and it all just happens and it's like so fast and it's so good. And sometimes you're like, this is not happening and it's really average and it's, you know, it comes out average and it takes longer. It's really weird. It's just, you know, so you can't plan the actual moment. That's what I mean, I think. Yeah, you can do, you know, have a method to getting there.
Yeah.
But you can't almost
I actually
plan
think that we're actually talking about the exact same thing.
Yeah,
'Cause my
okay,
lists, like they stay undone, you know. I get started on something and just, you know, something might feel right or something might not work, and
at the end of your list is find the end of the rainbow.
I'm like, no,
never get there.
The list like it just keeps growing.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
So for me, I was kind of touching on both. What you guys talking about, like you almost do all that planning work and then you do the creative act. And for me, sometimes there's a lot of like research absorbing and analytical work, and then that creative process comes in. But I feel the creative process does also start in that planning part.
Yeah.
Because it primes you to be able to
Yes,
perform
true.
creatively as well,
Yeah.
or create that right mindset space. Yeah,
Yeah.
but it works in different ways, because I guess on the slide here we're kind of more like design methodologies, and one might be more art based.
Yeah.
And they both have, they're both beautiful in their own way.
Yeah.
I feel like art can have less structure, whereas design can be more rigid. And as you practice that profession, your mind gets more like sharpened as a tool for that output. So that's why it's important to have chats with other creatives.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah,
For sure.
Because how do you find like that front end stuff where you have to research and you've got to kind of build some information? And because personally, I really struggle with that part. You know, I want to put pen to paper and just start seeing how things go, but I get hung up on, you know, these kind of ideals that I should meet this, accumulate a certain amount of research and then create a certain amount of, a series of resources to fall back on.
It is an interesting one because like in the creative process, just say if it was an art project and it was a side project, you could spend your whole lifetime on it because it's okay. But then as a professional having client work, then you always have those limitations of time and budget. So you're trying to scope things down within that and then having a good brief and then being able to go back to the brief to make sure we're not wandering off track. But if we do, like good creative practice, just make that idea on the side. It doesn't have to be part of the process because sometimes when you introduce some new ideas a bit later on, you'll blow out time. That might get excited
for
sure. It's funny, it's like a bit of a dance.
You're
gonna draw their attention in the right way. And all that.
Just going back to what it means to be a creative to me, I think I kind of align with what Bhav was saying in that after going through like architecture school and even through after like going through dance, because I started in dance before I went to architecture school, right? I didn't think of myself as a creative. It was like we're just learning dance. And then when I went to architecture school and then they're like, when you understand the idea of abstract, I was like, oh, okay, so this is what it means to be creative. And then after that is like, what essentially what we're doing is, like you said, there's something in our head and we're putting it out onto, like we're manifesting this into the real world. And so then I was like, well, isn't that just like a human act to do? And so then if I can do it, can't everyone do it? And therefore, aren't we all just creatives? It's just that we're creative. Do you know what I mean? But like, I understand that, we do specialize in our own areas, but essentially everyone has the ability to create something.
Well, I think that goes back to Bhav's list of the 8 different types of ways so you can be creative. There definitely, I think I can see creativity in a lot of people. Doesn't mean it's in the same way. Like there's creativity in the way you solve a problem. You know, there's a problem, something's not working, this and that. Like I've seen my husband do that. He's not creative in the same mind that he can choreograph a dance in his head, but I've seen him be creative in terms of solving a problem. Okay, this has happened. Okay, how are we going to fix this? Okay, this is the best way. And he does that so well. But for me, I feel like that involves creativity.
Exactly.
Yeah, and if you can do that well, there's a creative element to that. Even if it doesn't matter what it's to do with. I
think also it's really easy to fall into the habit of judging creativity based on output as well. And I definitely recognize that in myself, in that I judge myself and my progress based on output, which is kind of a counterproductive thing, because I don't believe that that's how you should be judging your creativity, you know. But I spend a lot of time thinking, and then I drink coffee and spend a lot of time thinking about thinking, and then at the end of the day I'm like, what have I done today? It's like, well, I've thought about it, and it's that in its own right I think is a creative process, but it's when you
it's funny you say that, because like when I'm like, oh, we've got a dance competition coming up, and I'm like, I need to choreograph something, it's got to be really good, and I put that pressure on myself, I blank, like nothing happens. Other times when it's like just for fun, it just like comes out really really good. So it's just when you are thinking about the output and like, oh, I need to produce this, you think about it, it creates a block straight away.
So people respond differently to stress, because sometimes it's like, oh man, things get worse and worse. Sometimes it's like, oh, you managed to pull through and you feel pretty good. I'm safe for another week. Life extended.
Level up.
Cool. I was going to say, moving into that, should we talk about the power of imagination and how we tap into that? And then if you guys do talk about the struggles of when you're under the pump and under the pressure, how do you deal with getting through that? Because I do find that does apply into real life situations as well. We come across these situations and challenges, and sometimes we're looking at everything just in one way, but how do we go around it, or how do we get to the other side? It's kind of like a 2-part.
Yeah.
Yeah, sure. So
the-
how do you do it as a
the
creative? And
optimistic
then how do you,
part.
yeah, how do you
and
do it
then
as a
the
creative?
sad
And then how do you
part.
do it? Yeah, as
Yeah.
So sorry. So we're talking about pushing through a creative block. Or we're talking about
let's talk first about the power of imagination
Yeah,
and
sure.
how you guys tap into that.
that's a hard one, eh? Because I think for me, so it used to be that I would just kind of consume, like Instagram and places where and online magazines and publications and things where you have all this really beautiful exemplary work of what you want to achieve. Used to be that I would just consume that and be like, oh, that's great. Oh, I love that. Oh, I want to do that. That sort of thing. And that to me, that was me tapping into my imagination and being like, I like that. That's how I'd like to apply that to something that I would do, right? But after a while, I found that it started to become overwhelming, and I was getting so much content that it was almost debilitating to be like, oh, I'll never be that good. And I would look at it all and tap into my imagination, but then immediately judge my future output based on what I was seeing, and just go, oh, I'm gonna take a lie down instead.
Too overwhelming.
So I recently I got rid of Instagram, got that out of my life to try and get back to, because I didn't know how I was. This is where I'm going with this. I didn't know how I was getting into my imagination without that kind of enabling app, essentially, right? Yeah. So I got rid of it to try and remove just this overwhelming, constant, all this information which I didn't need, and take it back to a baseline and explore how I could explore it. Right?
Has it helped?
It totally has helped.
Oh,
like
nice.
I read more books, and I think a lot more about, because I think, and something which Akash has recently helped me discover as well, is that my writing is kind of probably one of my more significant creative outputs, which is hard because that's something that's not immediately, you can draw something in say 20 minutes and you've got an output, but sometimes the writing aspect will take, and then someone's got to read it, and it's, for it to be out there, it's a lot harder, I think, as a creative industry, in some respects. And where I was going with this, it's because reading, I think, if you read the things you want to write and write the things you want to read, right, where it's like you kind of read the type of content that resonates with you. And so it's kind of a, harking back to that Instagram content kind of thing where I'm taking in content that I want to emulate, but it's not just constantly in front of me. I have to pick up a book and read it and go, that's useful. I like that kind of technique. Store that for later, and then try and emulate that in my own way. So I kind of feel like that was a bit of a long-winded way of explaining how I tap into my imagination. But it's been helpful to kind of go through that process as well, to work out what once worked no longer works, and now what, discover something new about my imagination and creative process.
That's so interesting. So just that reminded me of something as well for my imagination, because obviously Bollywood dance comes from Bollywood movies, so like I've grown up watching them, so that was okay. But when we were younger, I was lucky that like Dad had like some Indian TV thing, and there was a dance show. There were dance shows on there, and there was judges, and they were great, and they gave great feedback, and I was always listening to that. And but the good thing about that was back when it wasn't on demand. I'm just thinking now, right? I haven't thought about this. I'm just thinking out loud. It wasn't on demand, so you had to like set a time, like it comes on at this time. So that's when you sit down, and that's when you would watch it. So it was an effort to get that knowledge, because for me, that's how I was getting that knowledge. On choreography and music and how you listen to music and all that kind of stuff. So it was like a little bit of effort, whereas I feel like now I do it's the same situation when you're going through Instagram, like, oh, that's so good. Oh, how are we going to do that?
The effort is taken out of it, right?
The effort's taken out of it. And then it's not like I knew what I was going there for. Like it was the dance as well, but so much for it was like also these judges and these dancers, their comments and what they were saying. Because I was like learned so much from that. And it doesn't mean that you necessarily get that on Instagram. You just like seeing dancers or seeing dancers, and you're just like, oh my God, how do I do that? Or it is like overwhelming, and it almost does. I feel like there's like a point where it's like, okay, inspiration. It's adding to your bank of knowledge, and then it's like overwhelming, and it's just downhill from there. It's like it's too much, and you've gone over the top. So I think it's like finding that balance is so important. Sure. I think, and I think that effort is important. Like and Instagram, it's just there for you. Just like follow these dancers, and you're like, oh yeah, it's all there.
And I think that drop is quicker and steeper than that climb.
Yeah, it is.
Like
it is. And like it's funny, like I'd choreograph a dance and then I'll go back sometimes and I'll watch one of these shows and I'm like, oh my God, I got that from there. And I didn't even know. And you think you're being creative, you come up with this new thing and it's like, oh no, actually I picked it up from there. But obviously my brain had stored that somewhere. When I heard that piece of music, I was like, that goes with that. I put it together. So I don't know if you can be 100% creative and create something new as well. That's another topic.
For sure.
But yeah, it is. It adds to your bank of knowledge to a point until it's overwhelming. Is it even relevant to what you're doing? Yeah. When it's on Instagram, it's like half of it's probably not even relevant, to what you need to know. Is it going to add to your knowledge or is it just wasting your time? Yeah. And then hindering that creative process. Yeah. As opposed to adding to it. I think there's finding that
the balance.
The balance.
It's hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard to find that, I think.
Yeah.
Buff?
Yeah, okay. So, oh man, there's a lot to take in because it's kind of like I was saying of like tapping into our imagination, but then also the struggle of dealing with lots of stuff. I'll start off with the tapping into imagination. Let me think. I don't know. It's kind of just becomes ingrained in practice for me because I can remember performing creatively back to primary school days and what I was doing, and it just becomes like, I was talking about the tool get sharpened for doing creative things. So sometimes it feels like it can be on tap. Sometimes it feels like, oh man, it's not a good day for it. And earlier we were talking about like different stages of the creative process and planning and all that. I know for me, I try to keep those kinds of tasks somewhat bundled. So if I'm doing planning, I'll do a block of planning. I'll try not to jump between planning and creative, etc. Because sometimes it's like a bit of inertia or a bit of wasted energy that takes place, and if we get into that, if I were to talk about a tangible example, it's like, hey, just say one day I'm doing some building or fabricating, and I've also got some planning to do. I wouldn't want to bounce in between it. I'm in my work clothes. I'm ready to make a mess. Got my dust mask on. I want to stay at the tools. Don't want to go back to my computer. So it's kind of like, pajamas, ready for bed. My desk, ready for create imagination time, hopefully. But then I do relate to you guys, like with the amount of information that is available out there, and reminds me of like when I was a student, and then you look at all these things and you'd understand it or consider it to be best example. And to be honest, I'm pretty bad at being consistent at reading and looking at the latest, but I don't look at too much in the way of like design news, and I really should. But what I'm more interested in, or become more interested in, is some things that are embedded and behind design, like psychology. Stuff like that.
I resonate with that.
Podcast is one. I've forgotten the name, but it's like two people on the podcast. One of their backgrounds is like science, the other one's in physics, and then they're just talking about, or maybe one's got psychology background, and it's like you just hear stuff, and then for that it's like, oh, I wonder how these things could get embedded into practice. There's one example I share a lot when it comes to talking about design and product design, and the example I often use is just like talking about a cup, and you could look at a cup and you might think, oh yeah, that cup's made from glass, probably $2. But with me being a product designer, I'm aware of like, hey, how much work is involved in making a cup, like it can be cast out, etc. And what knowledge is behind this cup and what technology, and perhaps I'm unsure how old, like say glass or ceramics technology is, but you could say it's like thousands of years old. So this cup, the knowledge embedded in it is thousands of years old. Also includes the knowledge of like being able to hold liquid and things like that. So when doing like the planning and research part, it's kind of thinking about what information, what knowledge, or what themes do I need to make accessible through what I'm designing, and then that's a creative challenge, and then the creative challenge gets me going.
For me, when I experience like try to tap into imagination, what I found is kind of the same. It's like there's so much information out there, but what I've found is it comes quicker to me if I just think about what I've experienced or learnt from other people. Like I often remember more about what someone said than what I've read myself or looked at, or an exercise someone has put me through. I often tap into that, think about that, and then like, okay, cool. It helps me to redirect. I think that's kind of like, for me, imagination is like looking at all these things and then feeding them into one thing, rather than looking at heaps of different images. And like you're saying, Instagram, like, I look at stuff, but it's like I can't transform that as opposed to taking in what other people are saying or what I experience myself.
Yeah, definitely.
So do you have a methodology of like information management, I guess? Because it was something that I struggled with, going back to the getting rid of the gram. It was like I'd just find myself on it and be like, how'd that happen? I've got stuff to do. So it was I just got rid of it because I couldn't manage how I was using it and how I was taking that in. Do you have a
I think it's for me it's taking it in, and then like Akshi says, it kind of gets stored somewhere, like in the subconscious, because you're taking in all the information, and then when you get given a brief, I just try and think of like the keywords or the ideas or what's needed to be done, and then something from that will spark. It might be like, oh, I remember Akshi was talking about this, or I remember looking at this, or is something we might have said, or something said in this discussion, which will, like if I'll get to somewhere and it'll be like, oh, you need to design a place for creatives, and then automatically my brain will just think back to Bhav and his list of 8. That's kind of how my imagination works.
Yeah, but in terms of getting the information,
and then
for example, like that doesn't overwhelm you, like how Instagram overwhelms Brad.
Yeah,
it doesn't happen to you, or how do you manage that?
I'd be keen to hear what you guys think to that as well.
Yeah,
because I think it's an art, right? There's a real to be able to manage and maintain what you're taking in all the time.
I think for me it's like, is this helpful? Yes, no. Do I like? Or actually, what it is do I like it?
Sure.
If I like it, then I'm going to remember it. If I don't, then it's gone.
Because there are a lot of cat memes out there, man, and that doesn't help with anything. Like it's. Do you know what I mean? Like I don't. I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, what? Why? Why am I doing this right now?
You were following a few accounts, on
Well, I think that's another thing. Like you got to cleanse it. You got to cleanse your
feed.
Your feed. Yeah, you do. So most of my people are dancers, and then like inspirational kind of stuff. And then I do try and skip through like it's not relevant. Try and skip through that. And I'm lucky I don't have a lot of time to go on it anyway, so that's just good. Yeah. Like I don't have. So that's good for me. But I think what's not relevant, I try to just skip through it. Yeah.
I feel like like dance would be a really good thing to use that kind of medium for, because I think like with architecture, and to be honest, to any extent, to some degree, photography, I think it's all in the framing of the shot and the way that you can see architecture and interiors and this design which is beautiful and represented in a specific way, but a lot of it can just be in the lighting and the compilation of the
way it's structured,
the structure of the image itself and the photograph.
Same, it is similar with dance as well, because the same lighting, how you frame it, costumes, all of that kind of comes into it as well.
Cool.
And people look at it differently. So if you're like me, like I love choreography and I'm into choreography, I can like negate all of that and I can just listen to the music and see how they've choreographed. Whereas if you're into like the whole, how have they produced this and how is it, what is this theme of this video, what are they trying to show, and you can look at the whole thing. So you can look at it both ways.
That's awesome that you can do that.
Yeah.
That's a talent, I think. Like, I personally, I struggle to kind of look at it holistically and then take the bits from that I think are authentic or relevant.
Yep. But
when you're talking about like information and Instagram, reminds me of like with Facebook, you can create Facebook lists. I don't know if you still can, but I did it ages back where you can organize people into
Really?
like not groups, because groups, we got Facebook groups, but lists. So I've got a list with just family. So if I just want to see what family you're up to, click on that, scroll through.
I didn't even
Really?
know
I
that.
didn't know you could do that. Yeah.
This is maybe a while back. I don't know if it's still active, but
Right.
I put some time into that, set it up. But
Right.
I'm not really so active publicly on
Yeah.
Facebook. And then kind of similar approach on Instagram, kind of just following certain design blogs that I just want to see stuff from, but people get upset when you don't follow them.
Yeah.
Okay, people
That's right,
message me up like, hey,
Why do you unfollow me for?
Yeah.
Oh, man, I just want to look. I'm on Instagram.
Are we cool?
I
Are we cool?
just want to look at what's going on and design
funny.
and stuff I'm interested in, not
Yeah.
what you ate for lunch.
Yeah,
or
yeah,
dinner
yeah.
and breakfast.
So
and
true.
True.
Yeah.
Repeat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
You on top of a mountain.
Yeah.
Like,
But I
Let's
am
not
actually
hit that.
thinking about setting up a second Instagram just so I can follow those people back,
Yeah.
just to acknowledge them. People might not look at them.
don't tell anyone. Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
gosh.
It can easily be like overwhelming, those mediums.
Oh, for
because
sure.
Yeah.
They've been devised, no doubt, to be like take up as much attention as they can, because it's valuable for them for you to stay on it
Yeah.
for a long time.
Yeah, that's right.
So
Yep.
yeah,
And they're
that's
getting
much
so
of a trap.
smart because they know what you like as well.
Yeah,
Mm.
yeah,
You know, so it just keeps popping that
Yep.
stuff up in your feed.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yeah.
funny. I got on my soapbox about this yesterday. You know, like with some friends, we were talking about it, and you know, just kind of the. I mean, actually, it probably doesn't matter because I don't want to steer this chat into Instagram chat. You know?
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah.
those omnibus soap opera things that they play on weekends.
Yeah, exactly right. No, it's like when you get on your soapbox and you're like, I don't like this. Let me talk about that. You know?
Yeah.
Sorry,
Yeah, not soap opera.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, it's
Different thing.
yeah. I gotta get my expressions sorted. You know? It's old English shit.
It's my imagination at play.
Yeah, that's good, man. Let's keep it going.
Cool.
You asked something about creative blocks. as
Yeah,
well.
yeah. So if you guys want to talk about how you experience creative blocks, how you overcome them, and then how does that translate into real life situations as well, and how you use your creativity to help or assist you in life situations, or just in life.
Yeah. I feel like this might kind of segue into what Bhav was saying before about like stress management and you know, how you react under certain pressures and things as well. Because it's funny, like I frequently experience creative blocks, I think. And poor Akash is normally, you know, it's like one day I'm like,
You could do it.
I love life, I can do this. And then the next day I'm like, I can't do it, Akash. I can't do it. and then for like 2 hours he's just talking me off the ledge, you know. And it's like that's
right.
cool. Yeah.
Just
It's like,
relax.
you can do this. Change your attitude.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay. But it's funny because you know, irrespective of that, I know my process well enough by now, because all I think architecture school is as well, is it's a creative process, and it's delivering an outcome through a creative process, and architecture school, I think, is about exploring that and kind of having the opportunity to learn what your process is, process of creativity. And it's funny because, you know, I've done it for so long now that I know what my process is, and I know that by the end of it, I'm going to have something that I'll get there, you know, I'll pull it out. I will have something that I'm proud of and happy with, and that I you know would be something that I can look forward to. I know that that's coming, but it's hard because I'm impatient. I want to be there immediately. You know? I want to know the idea. I want to start working towards it, and it's hard to kind of. That's why Akash kind of, you know, gets the back end of my attitude, is because I'm like, well, I'm impatient and I want to know, and it's you know, I work well under stress. When I'm short of time, that's when I'm more likely to produce content that that I've been striving towards the whole time.
Forces those decisions, eh?
Yeah, those kind of, because it's you're short on time and you don't have time to kind of you know mess around wondering and thinking about whether or not it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
So I guess I don't really have an answer for how to get through a creative block.
Cool.
I don't know that I get through creative blocks. I just end up kind of being there. And it takes the time that it takes, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
yeah.
Yep.
For sure.
if that makes sense. Yeah.
Mm.
So, I don't know, man.
What about you guys?
Yeah, to follow on from that comment, it's kind of about how it needs to take that time, etc. It's only natural, and it's important to acknowledge that blocks happen. It's kind of like if you're running, you're gonna get tired. You need to have a break. In the same way, when you're performing creatively, it's gonna drain you. You need to take your break. But then sometimes you genuinely are blocked or stuck. It could be like an intellectual challenge and all sorts.
Yeah.
So, with that, I think it all comes through practice, and over time, it just helps build, say, your creative strength, creative resilience up.
Yeah.
I can remember, you go through design school and you think, oh yeah, I'm not that bad, and you get out, it's like, oh man, I'm pretty bad. Took yourself up a bit. I'm actually not that good.
I don't have any idea. I don't know anything.
So you can go from being naive to scared, or like confidently naive to scared. Yeah, it's an interesting one, because I noticed for me, just working on various projects, it just boosts your creative confidence, which confidence in itself helps you overcome certain barriers. But then there's other blocks there at play. It could be like stress and external circumstances. But when it comes to, say, working on projects and feeling blocked, for me, much like Brad was talking about, almost like wanting to see things now, I used to be a lot more impatient. It's like, I want to do some big, awesome stuff straight away. But to be honest, like the skills weren't matched up to be able to perform that way. And, it's kind of like a reason why when you start off, you're getting paid less, because you're taking 3 times longer or 4 times longer than a pro that will do it like that. However, on the other side though, there's on that topic of naivety, when your mind's a lot more raw and unexposed to certain things, you'll think about things in a bit more open way. Because over time you get almost carved into this box, and you get used to running through that process. So that's why it's important to shake out of it. But I think like creative confidence helps with those blocks. Acknowledging blocks will happen, give it time. With me becoming more patient with that creative process, there's projects which I've kind of prioritized. I used to have way too many projects going on at once. Or no, still have a lot of projects going on, but I'm not working on all of them at once. So giving projects priority in place, so that way I don't feel so bad if they're not really getting done. I've got some stuff that I kicked off like 10 years ago, and it's okay. It can sit there. And now and then though, how guys are talking about like, hey, the idea will pop into your head because you absorb this information. That's what goes on, like new experiences end up helping develop that idea without actively working on it. So that's like another way of working on a block. And professionally, a job has to get done.
No choice.
Positive pressure. One other thing, a cool concept is creative procrastination. So if you are blocked, you can be creative with the way you procrastinate, and that instead of just say like looking for an Instagram feed or something, you can do something else that you need to do. I remember watching this BBC. Actually, I don't know where the documentary came from, but I found it on YouTube, and they had someone perform a creative task, which was how many uses can you come up with this brick, and then they did an activity, and then they came up with more ideas. And what they were looking at in the psychology study was what impact that idea in between, the activity in between had on creating more ideas. And if I can remember right, there were 3 activities. One was sit there quietly, just like chill out, meditate, whatever. The other one was build a house out of Lego bricks. And the third one was organize the Lego bricks by color. Then they looked at how many ideas they came up with afterwards.
Right.
So have a guess at which activity led to better output. I'm going
to say the organization of color.
Oh, that's interesting, because I was going to say building the act of building and using the brick.
Yes.
To serve a purpose.
I think that house, building the house.
So it was actually organizing the Lego bricks
crazy.
by color.
Crazy.
And what they were talking about was just doing that autonomous task, not a lot of thinking. It's like, when you're absorbing all this info, right? There's a lot of disparate elements.
Yes,
where somehow physically, spatially organizing this is somehow does something.
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, which is
Makes
quite
sense.
cool to think, you know,
Yeah.
like
Makes sense.
when you move, it
Yeah.
can affect, it does affect your mind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
doing all
definitely.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's another thing. So creative procrastination. I can remember my friend saying like, if creatives didn't procrastinate, they would never clean. So sometimes like, maybe use cleaning as a way to get rid of blocks. So you're doing that thing that you might be putting off behind the camera. Eh?
Don't expose me, man.
Goodbye, fourth wall.
They only see this.
It's like a Wozjig puzzle, you know. Like what are we actually looking at?
Yeah.
I liked that term and creative confidence. I think it's a really good term for kind of knowing. For me, it means like knowing what you're capable of and backing that, and also knowing your limitations and what you need to push through. And finding ways to do that.
So that is another term that we use a bit at work as well, just with like kind of more corporate clients, and we say creative gradient, and because with having gradient in there, you're thinking like, you know, it starts from zero and it builds up, and that means you're taking people on a journey with you. So when you have people that feel that they're not necessarily creative, you know, you start them off light. You know, like in dancing might be an activity just to introduce people to getting comfortable with their bodies before they begin to do more expressive things and begin dancing and things like that. So often when we devise something and think about audiences, it's like, okay, how can we get people kicking off lightly in a creative way? It could be like, hey, here's a name tag, pick a color, write your name and something below your name, and then it all kicks off from there, and you just keep building people up. So once had an event where maybe for like an hour, just like a succession of little creative activities, and the ending of it was quite surprising and unexpected in that one group decided to do an interpretive dance, and I was like, what's going on here? And there were like people that you would just associate with being like kind of tight corporate sort of folk, but they were like rolling on the ground and acting like sheep, and it's like, cool good on you guys. But you know, like when you know, it's a whole creative gradient thing, but also the environment plays an impact on that as well. If you feel comfortable in that space, you'll feel comfortable to perform creatively. You know, like everyone's on that same journey, everyone's being creative. I can be creative too. Everyone's being creative in the space.
It's an interesting idea, I think, of how the role that your environment plays as well to be creative, right?
100%.
But that could be a whole other thing.
What can I say?
That's right.
Like I used to always be like, this is the room that I choreograph in. So we've got the studio and there was this other room. I'm like, this is my choreography room. I used to be like, this is where I always choreograph. And if that room wasn't available, I'm like, oh my God, it's not going to happen. You know, I was like, oh my God, and it was like, I don't know why I put that condition on myself. You know, that was like quite silly to do.
Did you ever break out of that? Like, is that
I did, but it took me a while.
Sure.
Like after I got married and I moved, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have to learn how to choreograph here now. You know? But yeah, I did used to do that. I put that constraint on myself. But then also I used to have those blocks in that room too. So you know, so it didn't. But I didn't see it then. But I used to have blocks in that room as well. Cool. But yeah, I think at the beginning I used to beat myself up and like, oh my God, just do it. You know, like you put pressure on yourself. And you're like, just you got to do it. Just do it. But later on, because I've been doing it for 20 years now, that I kind of taught myself that it's okay. Okay, you have a block, just get it done. You know, if we can tweak it later, change it later, it's okay. And just tell myself it's still going to be okay. Like it's going to be, I mean, in the end, probably you'll notice and you'll be the one who'll be like, that could have been so much better. But everybody else will probably be like, you know, that's
true.
Fine.
You're your biggest critic, right?
Yeah. So yeah, just kind of over the years, that I think it's that confidence in yourself that you knowing that, you know, you will get it done anyway. You're going to get it done. It may not be like to the standard that you want it to, but it's going to get done and it'll do the job kind of thing. So not beating yourself up. I think I used to do that first, and I kind of waste time doing that, you know. Like, come on, just get it done. You know, like you're just like beating yourself up. And now it's like, okay, it's happened. You're on a block. just get it done. Just, it doesn't have to be like 10 out of 10. Just if it's 7 out of 10, it's okay. Just get it done. Yeah. I think that's what I do. Yeah.
Yeah. I found when I'm in a block, I have to do the same thing. I just have to sit there and look at it and let it be, You know, you just remove yourself from the situation and you kind of leave the exercise on the side until you get through whatever you're in. And then if it takes too long, or you're getting down to the like time of submission or handing in, like for us at uni, I just go back to my first idea. I'm just like, okay, cool, let's just do that.
Right.
Because at that time, that was kind of like the idea would have just come to me. You know, it's not something that's just.
That's what they often say, though, right? Like your first idea is that, and it's amazing how many times you end up circling back around to that kind of original idea that you had.
Yeah.
Once you've kind of explored other avenues that either stem from that idea or stem from something around that idea.
Yeah, I'm always wary of that though. 'Cause it's like, I remember when I did like a small bit of postgrad, looking into like product attachment.
Right.
And like a psychology thing, how people get attached to stuff.
Yeah.
And the more you use something, you just become fond of it and you become attached to it. And I've seen it with people before with ideas that they have this idea and it's the idea and they become so attached to it, which I feel can be a dangerous thing in the design process because you're designing for people at the end of it. Someone has to use, appreciate, benefit from this.
Yeah.
And if you're all working on the idea, it's like a discussion point. You need to be able to challenge it to make sure that it's going to come out right for people. So I always like to, even on my first idea, because it could possibly come back to that, but it's kind of like I like to give it a good critical run through, just in case. You've got to be responsible.
That's why I often end up in the block because it's like, cool, this is the idea, and you just take this one thing and
but you're like, surely it can't be that easy.
And then you get to a point and you're just like, oh man, I've come this far. You know, it's like if I go back now, it's
so true.
too far to go back. So I'm just gonna sit here for a bit and wait
and get it right.
Get it right.
That's right. That's exactly right.
But that's like my process of the block is just I just have to sit there and wait until something happens, or I just like let it be.
I remember once random example, I was working on like a product. It was like a molded product, and I couldn't figure out how to get the detail I wanted on it. And it wasn't until like what happened in the garage at home, a piece of my material, this piece of foam, had like fallen down in the garage, and it was just like it was on the garage floor, and Mum had run over it. But that was the answer that I needed, because like the car had like. Left the imprint of the tires and was like, oh man, this is how I need to make my mold. I need to like clamp down on it. It's like crack up. Sometimes it pays to not be so tidy.
That's right. So you can leave that. Okay.
So leave your work on the ground and see what happens.
That's funny.
I guess as well, it's about paying attention, right? Like it's, you know, you could have just looked at that and gone, oh,
I'll pick it up, throw it in the bin.
I told you this is my stuff. It's here. But you know, paying attention to what's going on around as well, like you can get inspiration from anywhere, I think.
I also think like constraints help. I know it's weird. I feel like you know, like you think creative, you leave it all open. I feel like constraints really, really help. I feel like some of my best work is when it's like, okay, you need to produce this, and it's got to be this, and it's got to be like this, and it's got to show this, and you got to use this, or you got to. And whenever these constraints come and play, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? And then your brain like explodes, and it's like, I got to make it work within these constraints. It makes your brain work harder. And and like better work comes out, which is, I think is really cool. Sometimes when it's all open, you're like, okay, actually, you can do. If someone's like, you can do whatever song, whatever you want, and I'm like, oh my god, like what am I gonna
find a reason for all of this?
I think that's what we're kind of going through right now in our thesis.
So you can.
We've got this idea,
because you can do anything,
but we don't have any constraints. So I think the process.
Maybe you should create some for yourself.
Exactly.
Or we can come up with some right now.
I think that's another
a whole another podcast. But and it's exactly like what you're saying. You know, like constraints definitely, particularly I find with architecture. You know, if you have a site which is confined on two sides by existing buildings, adversity breeds creativity, right? And if you have these kind of really limiting constraints around you, you have a basis from which to start to be creative and to come up with creative solutions to the problem that's presented before you.
It's fun.
So you're absolutely right. It's great. Yeah, it's good.
fun.
I much prefer. I did a project recently where we had the choice of two sites, and one was kind of very open, almost no constraints. There was an existing building on the site, but it was very kind of open ended. All open space all around it. And then the other site was on Queen Street, between two existing buildings, both that have heritage facades. And I chose to go for that one because the program of the building that we had to design was, I felt it was helped by having this kind of unlimited, no constraint space. But I wanted to start with constraints, and the idea that I ended up coming up with was as a result of this really tight, confined site on Queen Street. I benefited a lot from those constraints, and so I absolutely agree that it's that can help with the creativity completely.
I think even going back to that constraints and with blockages, we did a show in 360. And that was like, in a way, it's all open, right? You've got all four sides. In other ways, it's constricting because you can't just face one way. You have to face everyone. You can't just ignore half the audience.
Backside, right?
Yeah. Also, we had nothing to drop and no rigging, and we can't create interest that way. We couldn't have a set because then it would block people's view. So it was just like bare. So in that way, there was no constraints, that way it was both constrained and not constrained. So we take 2 years to do a show because that's how long it takes us to write it and do everything and create it from scratch. And I think it was only like 6 months before that my brain like understood what this 360 meant. And I went back and I almost re-choreographed dances and changed them when I finally understood how this 360 thing works. And it took me really 1.5 years if you think about it. I felt like I was like in a block and I was just still trying like, how do I do this? We just faced two different actions. And then I was like, no, I can do so much more. I don't know when my mind shifted, but it just shifted and it was like suddenly. And then I just went back and I redid all the songs, even though these kids have been learning it for 1.5 years. And I'm like, okay, we're just going to do this differently now. But yeah, it took that long. Look, I feel like it took me 1.5 years to really understand what a 360 show is, and understanding the constraints, but also what can be done. Because I was like, I can't do this, can't do this, can't do this. Instead thinking, but I can do this and can do this. Yeah. So in both ways.
I remember even like... Because when we had to perform, we had to come on from there are four
different
entry
doors,
points. And even the act of getting from the changing room to that point was like a performance or a dance in itself.
Yes.
You had to be bent over, hands behind your back, and everyone had to kind of like scurry.
Because you couldn't access those two sides from the change room, so you had to go in the dance before, the blackout before, you go to that side, and the next blackout you go onto stage. So if you were entering from that side, so we had to plan it all.
So it's, not like a performance just on stage, but it was a performance in the whole thing.
Yeah, because you're always on show.
Yeah. There's no, you can't hide. There's no hiding. Yeah. So
Not
that
wearing
was
all black, hey?
No, that's right.
Floating hair.
you had to throw it in there. Actually, we should do that next time. Everyone puts on something black and runs, and then they take it off and then they go on stage. That would have
Where
been
did
great.
they come from?
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Did I should apologise. Did you hear my stomach before?
Nah, that was all good.
Oh, okay, sweet.
These won't
pick that up. That's cool. I thought it was loud. Yeah.
So just to finish up, do you guys want to maybe talk about something that you've taken away from today, and or talk about something you've taken away, or propose a challenge or a creative exercise that someone who's listening could do?
Yeah, I think it's great to have these kinds of chats because I think it's quite easy to get locked into your industry and to not kind of consider that there are other ways in other creative industries to get through creative blocks and develop ideas in ways that you maybe haven't considered. I kind of lost my train of thought halfway through saying that. So I don't know if the first half and the second half of that sentence made sense, but anyway. So what I've taken away, or what I will take away from this, is hearing the feedback from you guys. How you deal with, I guess, getting the origin of your ideas, starting to develop those up, build those up, how you get through creative blocks. Hugely beneficial to me to kind of hear that from other creatives in different industries. And I don't know that I should have thought of a challenge or something to.
No, it's all good. Just whatever comes to mind.
Yeah.
I thought I'd just chuck it in there.
I think something is that So I was listening to a podcast the other day, which was about how the benefit of you giving advice to someone can help you if you consider the advice that you're giving as applicable to your own problems as well. There's a lot of benefit in that because we quite often will ask other people for advice and take that on board, and then other people might ask us for advice and we'll give it. And it could be totally relevant to us, but we for some reason psychologically we tend not to take on board the advice that we give. So it's also been beneficial to me to kind of have this opportunity to voice some of what I think, so that I can just hear that back and try and take that on board as well. So maybe that's a challenge there. Like give some advice to someone and then take that on board.
Cool.
And apply it to something in your own life.
Yep.
Listeners,
Sweet.
viewers.
Cool. Much like an earlier answer mine, just what Brad said.
Yeah.
No, kidding. But to add to that, I think I always enjoy chats with other creatives because it's always very insightful, and sometimes depending on what industry you're in, you kind of get used to your own way of thinking, style of thinking that might be present within that organization, and then to hear other people and what they're up to in their process, it's kind of helps shake up your own creativity or reflect on your own practice more, which is always important as a creative because there's always new information coming through and your work needs to respond to like technology and culture and trends and all sorts.
Stay relevant, hey? Yeah.
So I know it's kind of like makes me lots of questions, new questions for reflection on. From chatting with you guys. Thanks for that.
Likewise.
And other thing is like we're talking about creativity. It's kind of comforting. In some ways, like a weird comforting to know, like, hey, these challenges are kind of shared across creatives as well, and it's only natural. But we kind of experience it and handle it in different ways, which is all good as well. It's important.
But the knowledge of not being alone, right?
Because we are kind of like a community or group. And creative challenge. I know I used to come up with quite a few, as you know, from Scribble or Cash. But one idea that popped into my head when you're talking about blocks and letting it sit there, I was thinking, wouldn't it be funny if you wrote your block a letter and see what happens with that? Like, dear block, why are you doing this to me?
Why can't you just be easy to deal with?
Why do you hurt me like this?
Ours is a strange and unique relationship.
Rush, I need to end with like going through. Just take a snap of that poster on the wall there.
So bring everyone else into the inside joke.
Behind the scenes joke.
That's right.
What Bob said. I feel exactly those things. Like so many new questions have come into my mind, and also the same thing. Like because I didn't really consider myself a creative until recently. It just kind of reaffirms that I am because I'm going kind of have the same ideas as you guys. So I'm like, oh my god, I am. So that's really cool for me to be like, maybe I might even call myself that now. Like I'm a creative.
Sure.
So that's cool for me. I think that's what I got out of this. And also like the techniques of getting through blockages, and also about the gradient and your creative confidence and how that comes about. And that's just like through years of practice, basically, I think, and knowing yourself, knowing your mind, and that everyone is creative to an extent. Everyone is, and everyone's just on a different level, a different way, and that's probably what I've learned all of today, which is really cool. Yeah. And like so many questions, I'm like, I want to talk about this, I want to talk about that, and but I know that if I start going into it, it's just like a whole new podcast. But so no, I think it's been really cool. Nice,
But that's the thing. I want you guys to keep, like, just to take note of these questions that you're coming up with, and to have more discussions around these things and bring them all to light. I think for me, what I've taken away is just to be aware of how I take in the information, like you guys were saying, and then how I store and process that and transform that into something else. And I've just enjoyed hearing how you guys experience the creative industry and what you guys do. also I enjoyed having you guys, because like Brad hasn't met you guys, you know, and you guys probably don't. Have probably only met one time.
I don't think, it's just a hi, hello, not really.
So for me, it was cool that I've got these creative people in my life, and then to bring them together to talk about something we all share. You know, I really enjoyed that, and so I appreciate you guys coming along to speak. That was cool.
Yeah, it's great. I've really enjoyed it. Yeah, it's been really good.
And so I really want to do more of these as well. And my exercise would be, because like we're saying, everyone's a creative. So my exercise would be for whoever's listening or watching to draw or take a photo of something, and that's it. Just draw and take a photo, because we're often like, I can't draw, draw something, do something, draw something, take a photo, chuck it up and share it with the Human Now, because I'd be interested, and I know you guys would be interested just to see what people do as well. Hashtag, actually a good point, Roshan. Hashtag at the Human Now, and hashtag at the Human Now, this is my drawing, let's make it that. So if you guys do that too, draw a picture.
I feel like I've got some already you made me do the other day, man. Akash was like, Brad, we just need to stand up and just draw something. 10 strokes, right?
10 strokes of a pen. Yeah, we were doing it.
Nice,
we're kind of like in a block. So we're like, okay, it was about 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock in the evening, and we're like, okay, let's do an exercise. So we just, same thing, we put constraints, 10 strokes of the pen. You have to be standing up.
Cool.
We wrote down 3 keywords we gave to each other. And we're like, okay, cool. In 10 strokes of the pen, just draw.
Cool.
And this is words like Akash gave me words like enlightenment, you know.
Oh God.
But you know, it's just
meaning to life.
10 strokes in 1 minute on the clock, you know. Like, it's thanks, man.
Did you just draw tears then? No.
Just on my face. Yeah. Why do you do this?
But cool. Yeah, I really enjoyed you guys
thank you,
coming
man.
along and sharing what you guys had to say. There's a lot for the people who are listening and watching. There's so much I think that we've discussed, and so much we can take away. It'd be definitely worth going back and picking those things up again as well. Cool. Thank you very much for tuning in. If there's anything that you'd like us to talk about, or if you got any questions as well, you can get in contact with us at info@thehumannow.co.nz. Please do share, like, subscribe. If you know someone, if you've got a creative around you, or if you want to tap into your creativity, then please do get in touch with us. I know that these guys here would be more than happy to help and just share their knowledge or their advice as well. Cool. All right.
Thank you.
No
Your
worries.
ending statement on the wall there?
That's it.
Yeah, so what we'll do is we'll just take a photo, or what we'll do after this.
No.
There's a poster on the wall that there's kind of like a little inside joke earlier on in the podcast that Brad was referring to. We'll just show what it is, so you kind of get a context. But that's about it.
Yeah. I'm sorry, man. I fiddle with my mic a lot as well.
That's all good, man.
I'm blown away by the tech here. You know.
Yeah.
Are those bolts in your hand? No, kidding.
Thanks for having us, man.
Cool. All good, man. And until next time, be human, be now.